What happens when a prince walks into Good Morning America expecting adoration, and instead faces accountability?
Before everything went wrong, Prince Harry was seated across from Michael Strahan in what was meant to be a standard interview. With measured tones and courteous smiles, the tension gradually increased. However, when Harry's poise broke and his conceit took center stage, it burst live on national television. Every second was captured by the cameras. The audience let out a gasp. By the conclusion, Michael Strahan had accomplished something that no host had ever done before. He dismissed a royal from the studio after concluding the interview. The typical early morning warmth filled the Good Morning America studio. The slick floor was effortlessly traversed by cameras. Producers used earpieces to whisper last-minute cues while lights bounced off shiny set elements. Michael Strahan sat calmly and collectedly on one side of the famous curving desk, looking every bit the professional broadcaster. Prince Harry, on the other hand, sat looking at his reflection in the monitor while tweaking the cuff of his navy jacket. He had a restless expression and the tiniest smirk on his lips. "Prince Harry," Michael said, grinning broadly for the cameras, "it's an honor to have you here this morning." Harry gave a sharp nod, his voice clipped. He said, "Please." But it didn't sound like he meant it. Unfazed, Michael went on. "You've spent some time in the United States. Many people are inquisitive. How are things doing for you on this side of the pond?" Harry moved a little in his seat. "It's refreshing," he remarked. "Less expectations and less noise." The studio audience laughed lightly in approval. "Here, I'm just myself, free from the old circus." Michael grinned. "That must be a significant shift, in my opinion." He hesitated before cautiously adding, "However, others may argue that you were followed here by the circus, books, interviews, and Netflix deals. Since you left the life of a king, you have been quite prominent." Harry's smirk faded as his eyes darted upward. "Michael, visibility is not the same as exploitation," he said cheerfully. "I'm sharing my narrative. For years, people have shared their stories about me. I believe it is just that I have the last say." Michael didn't change his tone, of course. "However, when you're in the spotlight, others frequently feel free to react, ask questions, and even refute your account of events." Harry's face became stern. "Isn't that the issue? Everyone thinks they have the right to analyze my life and turn every feeling I have into a headline." Michael leaned forward a little. "I believe that individuals are only inquisitive. You've expressed your desire for privacy in an open manner, yet you've also shared incredibly private moments on highly visible platforms. How can that be balanced?" Harry chuckled a little. "It's more like disbelief than amusement. You Americans adore the term privacy. You assume privacy is silence. It doesn't. Control is what it means. I choose what, when, and how to share. The point is that..." The air became more dense. Michael noticed the harshness in Harry's tone and gave him a slight smile. "Okay. But I believe some people may argue that it's a difficult line to tread." Harry leaned back and folded his arms. "Difficult for people who are unable to comprehend the demands of being born into a society where everything is tracked. You have no idea what that's like." Michael's eyebrows lifted a little. "You're correct. I wouldn't," he responded composedly. "However, I'm aware of what it's like to live under public observation. For many years, I was an athlete. I understand what it's like to have millions of strangers judge you." Harry smiled tightly. "Yes, but that's the life you picked." "I didn't. That was the initial shift." Faint murmurs came from the audience. Michael gave a slow nod. "It's true, but you're picking this interview. This is the platform that you are selecting. This implies that you have the right to respond and that others have the right to ask questions." Harry clenched his jaw. "Or not," he remarked angrily. A few audience members chuckled uneasily. In an attempt to maintain a positive atmosphere, Michael laughed a little. "You make a valid point. You've made a strong case for abandoning the monarchy. If you could go back in time, what would you have done differently?" Harry didn't think twice. "Yes, I'd have left sooner." Like a dropped glass, the words lingered in the atmosphere. Michael gave a blink. "That's a strong answer." Harry gave a shrug. "When people aren't accustomed to hearing it, honesty often sounds harsh." Michael gave a courteous grin but held on to it. "How about your family? Do you believe it will ever be possible to rebuild those bridges?" Harry's tone was lifeless. "I'm not here to discuss making amends. I've tried that approach. Some people will only show you affection if you follow their rules." Before responding, Michael paused for a brief moment. "Many viewers, I believe, would argue that family is family no matter what. Do you ever find yourself missing them?" That resolved the issue. Harry's eyes narrowed as his jaw flexed. He spoke quietly, almost too calmly. "Michael, you wouldn't be sitting here asking me about nostalgia if you lost your mother the way I did and were surrounded from birth." The audience fell silent. Michael gave a courteous nod. "I apologize. I didn't intend to offend anyone." "I simply believe Harry interrupted him." "No, you don't think. You make assumptions. The media excels at that. All of you pretend to be sympathetic while secretly hoping for a response. Now, Michael's smile vanished and was replaced by an almost robotic level of professionalism. He answered calmly, "I promise you that's not what this is. Asking the questions that people want to know is just what I do for a living." Harry laughed briefly and mockingly. "It appears that part of your job is to portray me as the antagonist." Even through the cameras, the tension was evident. It was palpable to watchers at home. The gradual disintegration of politeness, the development of a stalemate during an interview. Michael folded his hands and leaned back a little. He calmly remarked, "I don't think anyone here sees you as a villain. But maybe they see someone who's still angry."